Hi guys, Rick here with OrthoTape.com. We're going to show you today an application of a short leg cast, and what we're going to be using is our Neal OrthoTape or our OrhtoTape Neal Waterproof padding. Basically what it is, it's a cylindrical padding that goes on real easy, and then we're going to apply some fiberglass casting tape, and it's going to make it a completely waterproof cast so that you could swim, shower, or carry out your normal routine every day. So we're going to start off with our female kits. What you'll notice is in a lot of the kits they're going to come in two pieces. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to put the 2-inch on first, and then we're going to put the 3-inch on after that. So we'll go ahead and get started here. We'll take out the 3-inch. So as you can see, it's sufficient enough, obviously, that you're going to have a lot of extra. So we're going to be able to cut that when we need to. And then we also have our 2-inch, so we're going to go ahead and open that as well. Now there's two ways that you could do this. You could put the 2-inch on first, and then the 3-inch, or you could always stick them inside of each other and then slide it on. But for this application, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and roll this down, and we're going to do the 2-inch first. So we're going to start here, sort of slide it on. Go ahead and have you slide that up if you want to. And we're going to take it up to about here. Okay. You'll notice with obviously the males, you'd have a wider stocking net. Now notice how it's super exposed, like how the a stocking net would be, or a fishnet stocking net would be. You really want to get those holes to be a lot less covered. So what you want to do is bring this down a lot more, so that way you have a lot less holes. The other thing too is if you have a male, like for instance myself, obviously we have hairy legs. You really don't want hair coming through that. So once you get this all set up to where you have it nice and minimized as far as the holes are concerned, because you obviously have enough room back here, you can take a little bit more of that up, get it a little bit loose, and then take it down this way. What that'll do is that'll allow the hairs to go in the one direction, so you don't have hairs going through it. We're going to take the 3-inch and go ahead and roll that up next. So, and this is why I was saying, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and put the two together and start off like that, or you could go and do it something like this. Now obviously there's going to be a little bit of bunching, and you really want to work that part out. So, but the whole important thing to remember is what we want to do is we want to have 2 layers of this. Make sure we do it that way. So we're going to go ahead and straighten that out. Now depending on how high you want the cast to go, that's where you'll probably stop with the top part of it here. So, and the whole idea, obviously we're going to have the foot at 90 degrees. We're going to go ahead and push this out. And like I said, if you bring it down this way, you're going to keep the hairs from, if you have a male, obviously you're going to keep the hairs from getting exposed as well. And then what we're going to do is at the top here, we're going to take this inside layer and we're going to loop it down over some. So we'll slide that down a little bit. And then once we do the cast up to there, and the good thing about this is you'll notice that there's a lot of little hole areas which allow the water to escape. If you have other waterproof cast products, you'll notice that there's not as many holes, especially the problem that you start to have is down on the heel area. You'll tend to get a lot of pooling. The good thing about this here is you see I have a lot of holes here, and then the fiberglass material is already porous as it is, so the great thing about that is you're not going to have that problem. If you do find that you have a little bit of water in there, you just tilt your foot back and allow that extra water to run through. The other good thing about this is, if you have, get it wet whenever you're swimming, it only takes about a half hour to dry if you're using a cool hair dryer. So you basically put the hair dryer on cool, and you just start blowing up air up through the cast and down from the top, and that'll allow air to flow through and help it to dry a lot faster. It probably, as far as like taking it to get it completely dry, it's probably going to take at least a good couple hours, for complete dryness. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't always want to get it wet every day. You want to have some drying time in between, but this still allows you to be able to swim, shower, keep it clean, whereas a traditional cast, you've got like 3 to 6 weeks of not being able to do something like that. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and shape this cast up here a little bit. We want to make sure it's not bunching anywhere. Like I said, if it's a male, you want to make sure you bring it down some so those hairs don't get caught up in here because we don't want any tape to stick to any of the hair. So now we've got it like that. We can fold this back like this. There are a couple things that you could do if you wanted to. You could leave this here if you wanted to, or you can cut that away so that way you don't have that little bit of bunching there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece away. So that way I have more of a uniform finish here, and I don't have a lot of bunching like that as well. There we are. Make sure the foot's there at 90 degrees at an angle. Now at the bottom end, what we're going to want to do is pull this part up a little bit here, because we're going to fold this piece back and probably cut this off right about here. So I'm going to take that and fold that in there, and then I'm going to cut it off right about here. Okay. Take that back some. And what that's going to do is that's going to create the front edge there. And you take it to right up to the edge of the toes right there. And then eventually we're going to pull this back up over after we put the cast tape on. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get our gloves on. I'm recommending that you have a couple different pairs of gloves, because you'll notice that over time it depends on who you are. Obviously, if you're in a hurry and you're in a quick, fast-paced clinic, you don't have time to do something like that. And again, like I said, the more you get used to this, doing this application, obviously I'm talking, but to be quite honest with you, I mean, if you had these things already pre-put together, already tucked inside, I mean, you'd have this on, the cast on, you'd probably be done in about 15 minutes versus having to put the stockinette on and then wrapping the cast all up about. This is a perfect one fit piece with a nice bit of stockinette here. Makes it nice and easy. Again, pulling this back down again, you notice how we're gonna decrease those holes somewhat. We don't want it to be folding, but we also at the same time, want to make sure that it's nice and thick in this area. So we don't want to stretch it out like fishnet stocking. We want to make sure it's nice and good and thick. We don't want hair coming through there, especially if they're male. So I'm going to go ahead and take our cast tape. Now in our fiberglass, or in our waterproof cast kits, what you do, you get actually the tape for free. So we're going to include the tape in with the waterproof cast padding stockinette. You're going to get 2 rolls of 4-inch for the short leg cast and 2 rolls of 3-inch. So a lot of times it's a little bit of overkill, but it's always better to have extra than to run out of it. So since we're going to start down at the bottom, we're going to go ahead and start with the 3-inch here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out a 3-inch here. Get it a little bit wet. Just a quick dip. Remember, you don't want to let it sit in there forever because it's already starting to activate itself as well. I'll make sure you get a lot of that water out, because you don't want, well, at least with this padding, it's not a big deal. If it was other padding, you'd want to make sure you squeeze that out pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and have you hold your ankle there. Now, if I had a cast stand, I would have done that differently instead, but what we'll do is just have her hold her foot there like that. And we'll go ahead and start the rep here. Now the first layer, obviously you don't want to pull it too tight. You want to just go ahead and slide that on and build yourself a nice little base out of this. Around the heels and stuff you can pull out as well. If you get yourself at an angle where you're like, oh, I don't like this angle here, you can always cut, and turn, something like that. However, I mean, it's easy to work with, this tape. You'll find it's a lot different from our original OrthoTape. This is our new OrthoTape Premium. It comes off nice and easy. So the best thing to do is go ahead and get that first layer on, get that ankle set up in that right angle that you want. You want that 90 degrees. Go ahead and set up that first. Like I said, don't wrap it too tight. You want to make sure you get it nice and loose there, and just build that first base. There we go. You get a little bit of water on your gloves. Go ahead and rub that in. And this is how you form it, so it stays nice and perfect in form. Get those rough edges out of it. The other cool thing I like about this fabric here is, again, it doesn't, create a lot of, bumps and stuff like that. It makes it a nice, smooth cast there. So Go ahead and you can just let it hang there a little bit, and that way you don't, move it about. So it'll start to solidify there. We'll go ahead and take our 4-inch now. And now that we've got this bottom piece done, what we can do is take this back now. So that's the good thing about that. What we're going to do is strap that in there now, so that way we have, the cast, perfect, and you've got this nice little padding part here, which again protects the patient from the sharp edges of the fiberglass. All right. And like I said, if you're using 3-inch, 4-inch, however, it doesn't really matter where you start, how you go. I'm just going to go ahead and start here with this 4-inch now. We'll go up around and hold still there. See. And I probably should have used the 3-inch, obviously, around the ankle, especially for a female. Again, on the places where you don't have. One thing I like about our tape is you've got a lot of control in it. I've seen other tapes that are too slippy, and a lot of times, I've dropped them, and you end up with them rolling across the floor out of control. So this one has a little bit of tack to it, which is good, but it's not too tacked, so that way it's hard to come off the roll. So go ahead and set that up there, and then you let that ankle set. Smooth out any smooths you need to. You have to get your hands wet there. Okay, now we still have actually 2 rolls of casting tape. So like for instance, if you were gonna do a walking heel, you even have more tape here. We have more tape even, to utilize to finish this cast. My suggestion is whenever you're doing this, make that last layer look the best. Basically what you're gonna wanna do, I'll show you as soon as we get to that. I'm gonna go ahead and then change my gloves after that. Up here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and fold this down now to lock this in. Create that nice little bumper up the top there, so that way they don't have any ridges on that cast on either. We'll go ahead and take our other 4-inch. We'll start up at the top there. And just start laying it out. Perfect. Now the one way to get a lot of a good color to come out of it is don't touch it too much, let that come right off there. And this is where you're perfecting that final layer of the cast. And since I'm not going to use all of it, I'm actually going to do the 3-inch. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off there so I have most of the line at the back. Anytime you end it, it's nice to do that. And I'm going to finish up with the 3-inch. What I always say on that final layer, switch gloves. And that final layer, if you switch gloves, you get a better looking finish out of it. So take this final layer. Like I said, you want to make it look nice. The person has to have it on for a while. Don't run yourself super fast through the whole process. Make it look good. You also want to remember, like, down in these areas, you really need to extra reinforce these areas because obviously they're going to be putting pressure on there sometimes. Make sure that you get that strong. One of the biggest complaints is, when a cast starts to crack, it's simply because of the application. The person did not put enough tape on the bottom or wrap it around the areas that need it the most. So you're going to want to make sure you're doing that. Especially around the heel, you need to pull it a little bit harder so that way it conforms nicely. And then start taking this the whole way up. And there we have it, waterproof short leg cast. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Like I said, again, if you're going to get this wet, you don't want to get it wet every day. You want to give it some time to dry in between. The other thing too is a hair dryer on a cool setting. It's good. You just point it, direct it up that way, direct it up this way, or angle it down and do it through that. The other great thing that we have here is it's called a cast cooler. Basically what you do is you hook it up to a vacuum, and then what it does is it wraps around the cast here, and then it sucks air through. So it's going to suck air in the top and suck air in the bottom. Also too, it's going to suck out any water, so you can put it here and then maybe move it down here after. It's also going to suck out water, so if you have a wet vac, obviously you don't want to use your regular vacuum at home. Make sure it's a wet vacuum if you're sucking out water. But it dries it so much faster, it makes it so much easier to use, and it's a great add-on that you can add on to any one of these products. It's called the Cast Cooler. If you can't find it right away, just do in the search top, Cast Cooler, and I would add that to my cast as well, especially if I'm going to do a lot of swimming and things such as that. This thing's going to dry it so much faster because it's just going to suck air through, and then you don't have to sit there with the hair dryer. You just hook up your vacuum. It has an attachment. Also, your attachments will hook to it. It makes it faster to dry. So thanks for watching.